At this point, I want to say more than 50% of the graduates from dental school are female. But when you look in the leadership, when you look at the meetings and you look at who's on stage, it's really still very much male dominated. So I have, the blessing of being woman periodontist. I'm a Black periodontist. There aren't many minorities in specialty either, but it is what it is, right? And I want to say to that end, my first year out, I feel like I almost wanted to make a statement like, yeah, I'm female and it's okay. I wore heels that first year, every single day to work. I dressed up like I was just to the nines, and I think it was more for me because, yeah, I don't necessarily look like a surgeon, but I'm a surgeon and you're going to accept that today or you're not, but it's still me and I'm still going to do what I'm doing.
Welcome to the third episode of the Story Project, everybody. I've been getting some really great feedback from our audience so far, who are loving the dialogue and all the stories. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I am so excited today to welcome my guest, Dr. Janelle Delica. Thank you so much for being here today, especially with your busy schedule and everything.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be one of your guests on your show. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, to begin, let's talk a little bit about how we met. And we just actually recently met in January of this year. And we both attended the Surgical Influence, their CE event there, which is definitely a very hands-on CE event with Dr. Israel Petterman and Dr. Matt Fine. And we got to hang out a little bit at the cocktail hour and just kind of talk about all the things, which was really fun. I believe we covered, being moms, being married. We talked about life, hair, all of it, right? And if you're watching today, you have really beautiful hair. I love what you've done with it.
Thank you.
So it was so nice to meet you there and yeah, hear your story. Well, I would love for our audience to get to know you a little bit before we dive into the real, in-depth stuff of our conversation today. Where did you grow up and where do you live now?
So great questions. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I'm from a very sunny, warm place. And I am the last of seven kids. So I'm the baby of my family. I'm the first dentist of my family as well. And after all of my schooling, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, my husband and I relocated to Palm Beach to be closer to my mom. So we're up in Palm Beach now, and that's where I opened my practice a few years ago.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you do and your story there. Tell us, how did you get into dentistry? And I was curious, did you dream about becoming a dentist as a young girl, or who influenced you?
Great question. So on record, my want to become a dentist started when I was in about high school or like 13 years old. That's on record. I was thinking about that question though as I was coming in today, and I realized I've actually been drawn to healthcare much younger. So my mom is a public health nurse. And as a child, I would go to different early interventions that she would go within the community to help school children get ready for school, make sure that they're healthy and, their families are educated on how to best take care of these kids. And I love seeing the impact that she had on these families. And then my family is also from Jamaica. And at least at that time, there weren't many dentists on the island. And so there really wasn't anything in the way of preventative care. There would be a dentist who would come through the smaller villages maybe once or twice a year. And if anything was decayed, it was coming out, and that was it. And that really traumatized my dad. And I think just hearing their different experiences and to me, it just kind of came to me like, oh, I could do something. I can be a part of that change. And that's where my interest in dentistry really started. And as I got older, I could articulate that more. I remember being in second grade and a dentist visited our class for like career day, and he's asking questions. I'm like, oh, hey, I know that's the x-ray. Like I've always been into this field. I think I just really knew, okay, I can take these steps to do that as I got older. So I've been on this journey since about 13, I'd say. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it, the ups and downs. I'm loving all of it.
Wow. Story. I have been to Jamaica twice, and both times it's just a beautiful country, beautiful people. Yeah. Was it your patients that started calling you Dr. Delicate? I found that amazing.
Yeah, no, actually they did. So Delica sometimes is harder to say and they're not quite sure how to pronounce it. But then it was like Dr. D and then Dr. Delicate, and it just kind of continued from there. And so I like it. I like it and it works. If I was really like, burly and, beating up on patients, that wouldn't work so well, but we try to live up to it. So it works. Mm-hmm.
Describe your practice for us. How long have you been open? What is the focus, of your practice? And, what does a patient experience when they walk through your doors?
So I have a boutique practice in Wellington, Florida, which is in Palm Beach. Boutique in the sense that it doesn't really feel like a dental practice when you're here. You walk in and everything is just very calm. And I put a lot of thought into even the colors and the textures that we included in the practice to kind of convey that spirit of just, you can be here and relax. Our focus as a specialist is really periodontics and implant dentistry, and that ranges everything from treating patients that have gum disease to addressing recession defects, and then the fun different types of bone grafts that are necessary to support implant dentistry. We also do LANAP here as well, which is a non-invasive technique for periodontal disease. So that's more or less what we do here. And yeah, we've been here for about 3 years now. Prior to opening up my practice, I traveled as a specialist for a couple of years. And I want to say maybe just after my son was born, I said, you know what, I'm ready to step out on my own. And that at that point I was, this is mommy number 2, mommy to second little one. And even though that was, a little bit intimidating, I figured, you know what, if I'm going to do it, let me do it now and just run with it. So we've been here since. Mm-hmm.
Thing. You and I briefly spoke about being working moms, and when we were together in Florida at the surgical event, and you mentioned getting married during dental school, having a baby during residency, and then opening the doors to your practice while parenting a toddler. Wow, that alone is a mouthful to say, much less, live through and experience. Tell us a little bit about your journey of starting a family and then also starting a practice at the same time.
Absolutely. So, as I said before, I'm the last of 7. My mom is the last of 8, and my dad's the first of 6. So I'm used to a big family, and I would be, lying if I said to you that I, in my head, felt like, being career-minded versus being mommy-minded. I don't really look at them in competition. I feel like they're just both aspects that I wanted to have and pursue in my life, and so I was fortunate in meeting my husband the day after I graduated from high school. And, I said, we met, it's like, oh, what do you do? He was a student. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to school, Friday, I'll be starting college on Friday and I want to be a dentist. So I think it was great for me in the sense that from the beginning, the person who I was with understood that this is who I am. And it wasn't kind of like you have to choose, I never felt like I had to choose. So in any case, we got married after my first year of dental school, which was really fun planning a wedding during, school, because school's challenging, and you want your wedding to be nice. So, and we were out of state. So all of that was really fun. And I graduated from dental school, not realizing that I was pregnant. So we moved back to Florida from Boston. And like a week later, I realized, oh, wait, like I'm pregnant. So we had the fun challenge of going into residency and saying, hey, Dr. Whomever, hi, I'm pregnant, But again, like I said, I didn't feel like, it's not like you can put everything else on pause while you pursue your career, right? At least that wasn't the way that I saw it. I felt like I can do both of these things. I know it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but it'll be rewarding as well. And like I said, once I finished residency and I started working, Kingsley came along. And I think for me, it was kind of like, if you're going to work this hard, like do it for yourself. Why not? I don't have it all figured out. Nobody does. But I'm not going to let that stop me. Let's just continue to move forward and, we'll all just work with it. And that's what we've done. And I'm really, really fortunate in that I have a very supporting family, not just my husband, my in-laws as well, my mom as well. they're very, you know, involved in our kids' lives. And I feel like that does help me to be and do the things that I set out to do, not only in dentistry, but in my personal life as well.
Wow. Yeah, I think the steps that you've taken professionally, you need a support system, to be an awesome mom and an awesome, professional. And so, I don't know. I think for me, it definitely feels like a juggling act at times. Some seasons are crazier than others, balancing being a good mom and also being a good professional. In the past, I have gone through experiencing criticism and judgment from other people, probably with more who have more of a traditional mindset when it comes to whether a woman can do both. Can she be an awesome mom and also an awesome professional? Have you ever, outside of your family, experienced any criticism for being, having a busy professional career and having your own practice while being a mom to little people?
Well, absolutely. I would say I've experienced it in a couple of ways, and I'll just be very transparent with you. I remember finishing residency, and there was a periodontist that I had met with, and I'd been meeting with him a couple of times. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy's going to hire me. I'm going to work here, and this will be cool. And he said to my face, "I don't hire women periodontists because they get pregnant." Like, just straightforward. I've had other doctors tell me, you probably shouldn't open a practice. You have kids. Like, how's that going to work? Um, so, or even in residency, being told often, well, you're going to want to do the mommy thing, so you'll probably work part time and what have you. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but it was important to me to make those decisions for myself as opposed to having somebody speak those to me and telling me, well, that's how it's going to be. Um, I'm pretty goal oriented. I'm one of those people that's like, okay, tell me that I can't do it so I can show you really, like, let me show you how I did it. And that's just, I don't know, that's just a little quirky thing about me, but that's who I am. And for, women out there, again, I think it's good to make sure that you know who you're speaking to and who speaks into you and who kind of pushes you away from what you want to do. Um, Even a close, a close professor that I've talked to for years afterwards, every time I kept come to him and said, hey, I'm thinking of opening a practice, he'd always say, oh, it's not now. This isn't the right time. I think maybe the third time he said it to myself, I said, I don't need his permission. It's
Yeah.
not like he's, what is he signing on a loan? Like, I don't need his permission. And so that's the last time that I spoke to him about it. And then the next time that we spoke, he's like, what's up? I'm like, oh, well, I opened a practice. um, that's just who I am. I definitely feel like there are challenges that come with it. And for me, a part of the support and motivation that I've had is looking at other women, not necessarily dentists, but other women who I feel like are at the top of their fields. We're close friends with one of the VPs from Microsoft. She's amazing, but she's very much about her family. And I reached out to her and I said, well, how do I do this? And her advice to me was like, you can't do it all at once. Sometimes you may have to take a little bit of a further step towards business or be stronger in mommyhood. You can't do it all at once, but you can do it, and me realizing I can do it, it feels good. It feels great, actually.
Lastly, any last words to any of the working mommies out there? Any piece of encouragement?
Well, one thing I will say is I know that we all probably to some degree deal with mommy guilt, and I definitely felt that in residency because I'd be in residency like, oh my God, I just want to be home with this baby. She's new and sparkly and I'm missing things, and I'd be upset. And there's a dentist, Dr. Daoud, and she kind of cornered me one day and was like, listen, don't feel guilty. What you're doing in residency, that's ultimately to help your kid, And I think looking at it from that perspective helps me a lot to say, okay, all right, okay, maybe I stayed late today, but there's a reason for it, and ultimately I'll be able to enjoy more with my kids because of, what I'm doing in my career.
Especially in this virtual world, and all of our kids have been, going back and forth between hybrid virtual learning. They have been around a lot. And sometimes, we've been together so much. I wouldn't say that quality of time is amazing, but it's really those chunks of intentional time that really seem more significant, and where we, it kind of is, there seems to be more connection involved, versus just being around each other 24/7 or so. Yeah.
And I feel like when you do have that time, be present, right? Be there. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids, When I'm at work, it's work time. If they call and they need something, okay, cool. Especially now Clover, she knows how to FaceTime me and she'll call the office phone if I don't pick up. But we have certain things that are our rituals. We are at the beach just about every weekend. There are things that they know, okay, I know on Saturday mommy's doing this with me, or this is our go-to Wednesdays, mommy's off. So if we want to do something, this is the time that we'll do it. We have our routines, and I feel like they feel, more secure in that as well, and show up. So yeah.
I would like to hear a little bit from you about your adventure at Florida A&M, and then, what kind of led you to continue on to Harvard, which I almost fell over when I found out you went there.
So Florida A&M is a historically Black college in Tallahassee, Florida. Honestly, because my family is not from here, I didn't grow up understanding the richness of historically Black colleges and universities. I didn't really even know they were around, to be honest with you, but they wrote me during my junior year. And, when we were doing our college tour, I was like, let's check it out. And I think what drew me to Florida A&M is just how accessible people were. It wasn't hard to call and speak to the director of the biology department or the pre-health coordinator. It just seemed like, okay, they really want me to do well and they're available. And it didn't feel like, I was chasing anyone or anything like that. I wasn't talking to the team, speaking to my teachers, So I think that's what solidified it for me. Being there was amazing though, just meeting different people of the African diaspora, different parts of the country, different countries, different Caribbean countries even. It was just a great experience. And like I said, I felt like my professors were so invested in my journey. I wasn't just a student. It was like, okay, for example, my first day at Florida A&M, I went to the director of the leadership program, Dr. Peterside, and she says to me, okay, well, what do you want to do after school? And I go, well, I want to be a dentist. Well, where do you want to go? I go, University of Florida. She goes, okay, that's nice. What about Harvard? And I'm like, my mom would like that. But literally that day, she got me in contact with another Florida A&M alumni who happened to be a dentist who also went to Harvard, and from that day, Dr. Scott has been my mentor for years. And that's how I applied to a lot of different schools for dental school. I got into all of the schools, but Harvard was kind of placed on my heart at my first day of undergrad, and the transition from that Mecca where you're not in an environment. Okay, you guys can't really see me, but I'm African American, of course, right? So you're not in an environment where you're thinking race at all, right? Because everyone more or less looks like you, and you're just there being amazing and being great with other talented students. Harvard is amazing. The class there was 35, so I'm one of 35 students. I'm the only person who looks like me, right? And so I'd be lying to you if I didn't say at some points I'd get up and be like, okay, am I supposed to be here? I don't really fit, my experience coming to the school is even different from a lot of my other classmates, because a lot of them, their parents were either dentists or doctors or what have you. That's not me. And yet I still felt very strongly that I had a purpose there, And so it's hard. Dental school is hard. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not. It's challenging. And I feel like it's challenging there even more because our first 2 years were at the medical school as well. So on top of our preclinical dental classes, we're taking preclinical medical school classes, right? We do head and neck of the anatomy, but I can tell you down to the muscles in the toe because that's where we dissected our cadaver down to. Now, do I need that knowledge now? Not so much. But there are definitely other aspects of, the curriculum that drew me to that school over other schools.
So were you the only Black American female or Black American completely in your class there?
In my class, only African American student, period, in my class.
Okay.
So we come in with, you come in with your cohort of students. I did stay an extra year because I did my public health degree there as well. So when I graduated, I did my 4 years of dental school straight, and then my public health year, and then I walked with the class that entered behind me. So yeah, there was another student in my class, and there are students above you and below you. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that I didn't anticipate that, because I think as you go higher in academics, there are less minorities, and that's just a simple fact. I think at this point there are maybe 3.6% of dentists are African American or identify as African American, whereas population wise we make up about 15% of the population. So there's definitely, there are definitely less of us in these higher fields and in dentistry as well. So from Harvard, I went on to residency. Across all of the residency programs at the school, I was the only African American woman, period. There wasn't anyone else, Um, but I will say this, even at Harvard, because our classes were with the medical students, there was definitely a community there. Boston is a very diverse city. We had definitely friends that were, from similar cultures and ethnicities within our church group and with our church family. So we definitely found that, but it can feel isolating at times, being the only person. When you walk into a room, you go to a meeting, you're the only person there. It can feel isolating, I feel like by the time I got to residency and completed it, it was sort of like, okay, it's just me. Let's just accept it. It's cool. And we're just going to keep moving. I didn't let that make me shy away from different opportunities, whether they were in leadership, whether it was approaching, different offices or different people. This is who I am. This is the way that I, showed up on the planet, and I'm fine with that. I know even in dentistry, there aren't many minorities, and there are more women in dentistry now than there were previously, of course, right? But even those experiences, hearing from some of my professors at dental school, the challenges that they face being the first women to come through dentistry. It's interesting, and it kind of helps you to put things into perspective. At this point, I want to say more than 50% of the graduates from dental school are female. But when you look in the leadership, when you look at the meetings and you look at who's on stage, it's really still very much male dominated. And I hope, as time goes on, both of these factors change. So I have, the blessing of being woman periodontist. I'm a Black periodontist. There aren't many minorities in specialty either, but it is what it is, right? And I want to say to that end, my first year out, I feel like I almost wanted to make a statement like, yeah, I'm female and it's okay. I wore heels that first year, every single day to work. I dressed up like I was just to the nines, and I think it was more for me because, yeah, I don't necessarily look like a surgeon, but I'm a surgeon, and you're going to accept that today or you're not, but it's still me and I'm still going to do what I'm doing. And so I get really excited to, see more women stepping into roles. It makes me excited, and I'm excited for what's going to come too.
Oh man, you're paving the way. I mean, that's literally what you're doing and what you have done. That's so incredible. I did pull a little data, and you mentioned some data as well, and your numbers actually could be more current because this is your industry. But there's over 200,000 practicing dentists in the US, around 5,700 periodontists in the US. 34% of those practicing dentists are female. And then I pulled a stat, 6% are female and African American. So so being, you mentioned being an African American female periodontist in a very white male dominated industry of specialists, how did you handle moments where you felt intimidated or overlooked or?
So I don't necessarily know that I'm a person that would take easy with feeling like, okay, I'm overlooked or I didn't really get that opportunity. I feel like I'm kind of tenacious in the sense that if I want something, I'm gonna go and get it. Even in that that situation with the periodontist that I mentioned before, it was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to work in his office, but like I'll definitely open my own office, and then, you know, nobody can tell me, well, I'm not going to hire you because you're female, you know, like you just kind of find your way around it. And I think you just kind of, like I said before, you have to just set in your heart, you know, if this is what you're doing, if this is for you, it's for you. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or says. You just have to kind of continue to be about what it is that you need to be about. Um, I feel like, you know, whereas some people may have an easier time getting a seat at the table, you can find your own seat and just bring it to the table if you can, right? I know that, like, even in our local dental community, I noticed that our local meeting, it's mostly men, you know, it's like almost all men, but there are many women dentists who are practicing even in my community. And when I say to them, hey, where are the women? It's kind of like, well, they can't be here. They're moms. And, you know, it's kind of like a nonsense answer. And I'm sort of like, well, I'm a mom, I'm here. So, you know, what is that about? But like I said, I sat down with another woman dentist and I said, hey, you know, let's start a women dental group. She's like, yeah, let's do it. And when we did it, you know, the women just showed up and they were so excited to be in a space where they felt like, you know, we can talk and just be open about our experiences in dentistry as moms, as women, and be okay with that, you know? So, okay, if you can't get at that table, just get to another table. It's okay. Keep going.
What type of change do we need to see happen in the industry when it comes to not only females, but underrepresented minorities, in your opinion? Like in what ways can we make dentistry or even, you know, dental specialties more appealing and welcoming to African Americans? What would your thoughts be?
I think one of the things that is really important, just generally speaking, is exposure, right? Um, my parents are, like I said, Caribbean people kind of, you know, stick to themselves, at least in the era of time that they came to this country. And so growing up, actually all of my healthcare professionals were Caribbean. Um, a lot of the people that my parents fraternized with were also Caribbean. And so I would see different people in different positions, but it never felt to me like I can't do that, right? Because I was exposed to that at a young age. If Dr. Scott looks like me and he's doing this, like, why can't I do it too, right? I think exposure is key. Even for me getting into specialty, it's really because in dental school we had to do periodontal surgery to graduate. When I first learned about peri, I was like, that is yucky, it's bloody, it's nasty, like, ew, that's not, you know. Thinking about dentistry, I wasn't thinking perio at all, to be honest with you. I didn't know what perio was. A pre-dental summer program is where I first got exposed to periodontics. And again, in dental school, doing surgery, that, like, you know, really exposed me to that. And I got excited about it. And that's the direction that I went in. So I think exposure is a big part of it. But I do think there's something to be said of making sure that when we do get into these spaces, we're set up for success, right? If you walk into a room and you always feel kind of isolated or as though you don't fit in, it's not a matter of not having the talent, it's just the environment that you're in, right? Like a flower will become a flower, but if you don't give it the right things, it's not going to grow. Yeah. My friend, actually, I was talking to him. He's a patient of mine as well. And his young daughter came recently. And I was sharing with him last night, you know, I'm doing this interview, but I feel a little bit nervous. And he's like, no, 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 you should definitely do it. Like, you know, my daughter and she's like 4 or 5. And he's like, no, she was so impressed, you know, with just seeing you being a dentist and owning your business. She was just like, wow, you know. And you know, sometimes we forget that just being who you are, you know, is sometimes enough, because someone seeing you do it says to themselves, hey, I can do this too, you know? So
If people want to follow you on social, which everybody right now listening or watching, you definitely should, on Instagram, what's the best place to find you?
so my Instagram handle is Doctor, the word spelled out, DOCTOR _delicate, because I'm Dr. Delicate. That would be the best way to kind of keep up with the likes and times of Dr. D. And yeah, I'll follow you back.
And you guys all, I encourage you right now, pull out your phones, follow at Dr._Delicate on Instagram and be daily and weekly inspired. So thank you again, Dr. Delica. You are a beautiful soul, and I just am honored to get to know you and excited for all of this to come out and for us to launch the podcast and video too. So guys, thanks for hanging out with us on episode 3 of the Story Project. And that's a wrap.